Hi, my name's Emma, and let's talk spooky stuff. Welcome back. I am very excited about today's list. This list actually started off as a French extremity list, but there's been a few adjustments. And before I go any further, yes, this includes Canada. The term French extremity was coined by Toronto International Film Festival senior programmer James Quant, who wrote a piece on art form slamming the trend of extreme violent cinema for shock value. Films that fall into this group are built around extreme sexual themes, violence, body horror, and of course, psychological impact. It's where gore meets psychological trauma, and Ryan Hollinger has a great video breaking down the movement and what it really means. I'll link that down below. But this isn't exactly a horror movement. A lot of the films considered to be a key part of the movement were dosed in sexuality, such as Intimacy from 2001 and Glowing Eyes from 2002. I really wanted to name a few more of these kind of films, but they all have very intense titles that I cannot repeat on YouTube. But my point is, when something is extreme, it usually finds its way to horror, and the horror community has completely benefited off this movement. The term was coined in 2004, but that does not mean that there weren't films before this term had come about that also show the same themes. And of course, there are also a lot of recent films that have drawn inspiration from this movement. So for this reason, I decided to title this video a little bit more broadly, and instead of just calling it French extremity, this is overall disturbing French cinema, because I know that people get touchy with certain terms meaning certain periods within film. This one is just 20 really disturbing French films that I think that you will enjoy. There are some hidden gems in here. Maybe enjoy is the wrong word, that you should know about. Grab a piece of paper and pen. There is a lot to cover, and there is a lot of Gaspar Noé. Speaking of, somehow IMDb has listed this film as a crime drama mystery. No horror, no thriller. But this is an exception I will make to the list for a good reason. You can't talk about disturbing French cinema, especially French extremity, without Irréversible. This is Gaspar's infamous violent and shocking film that is presented to audiences with the scenes edited in reverse. The film is about a woman who was assaulted, and in turn, her ex-lover and current partner who seek revenge. The movie is infamous for its gut-wrenching prologued assault scene, but it's also known to make audiences squeamish because of the camera work and the rumor of the droning frequency. It's said that the first 30 minutes of the film has a tone with the frequency of 28 Hz, which is almost inaudible. But in humans, this can cause nausea. Either way, it's one of the most controversial films ever made, as well as probably the most disturbing film to have ever come out of France. The film has many things to say about violence, but of course, the way the film is edited, it's the one film on the list that presents the reveal as the softest part of the film, because the reveal is before any of the violence begins. And there's just something I find completely fascinating about that. The film at its core is about time and fate. As they say in the film, the future is already written. If this next film doesn't disgust or disturb you, I think you might be too far gone. I Stand Alone is the tragic film that follows the breakdown of a lower middle class butcher. The story opens up with his account of devastating events that have led his life to where he currently is. And moving forward, he hopes to change his fate, but his mind cannot take much more, and he breaks down and lashes out on those around him. The film has some extreme taboo sexual content that I wish I had never seen. I Stand Alone is extremely disturbing because of the realistic portrayal of the character. What I find most fascinating about this story is the fact that it's driven by the character's inner dialogue as a narration. But if it was stripped of his voice, it would tell the same story. The dialogue isn't needed, but it shows a first-hand account of a downward spiral. Livid is a strange one. The film relies on shock value that can either hit the mark or miss it completely, but it is a true gory body horror nonetheless. And some of the scenes have such disturbing imagery that it's earned its place as one of the French extremity films that people often refer to. This is gothic horror meets home invasion. In this film, a bunch of friends break into a decrepit dance academy to rob a woman on her deathbed, but they stumble into disturbing secrets they cannot escape from. I don't want to give away the wild card in this film, but if you haven't seen it, there are some surprising aspects and scenes. And also, fun fact, there is an American remake in the works. Of course, you knew it was going to be on the list. One of my favorite films of all time, MARTYRS. This was written written and directed by Pascal Laugier. What some people don't know about this film is it was inspired by Eli Roth's Hostel from 2005, but instead of making a film based on the idea of suffering, the director wanted to make the film about pain. And there is no wonder why this film is so polarizing. The film is about a woman who seeks revenge on the people who tormented her as a child, but this leads her to a journey that faces the darkest side of humanity. The film is just something that needs to be experienced. It's a strange 3-act flow where you're jerked into almost a new film every time. But its unique and purposeful storytelling is what sets it apart for many. But for others, it's why they refuse to watch it. Man Bites Dog. This film is utterly disturbing for many reasons, and although it's less of a body horror, it's one of the most sickening and violent films I've ever seen. The film is billed as a dark comedy, but with sexual assault and harm to children, it's anything but that. Man Bites Dog is a found footage mockumentary, and it follows the life of Ben, a cold-hearted thief and serial killer. The movie documents his interaction with the film crew, and is a raw look into the psychopath's life. It's grim, bloody, and above all, violent. The whole time you're watching this film, you feel terrified by Ben and his actions, which makes sense when you look at the English translation of the original film title, which is It Took Place Close to Your Home. And that all being said, it leaves you completely in awe of his performance. I'm so glad I rewatched this next film before making this list. It was so much more intense than I remembered. Written and directed by Xavier Gens, Frontiers is a non-stop roller coaster about a bunch of criminals that flee Paris during a political riot, and they walk straight into hell. I mean, of course it depends on your definition of hell, but if hell for you was an inn run by neo-Nazis, yeah, this is hell. The film is extremely gory from start to end, which is why it was banned in Thailand. Frontiers is packed with sex, torture, and gore. To be honest, I could see the depraved family in the film getting along well with the Sawyers. I have not stopped thinking about this next film since I watched it, and it's probably, I don't want to say one of the best films I've seen this year, but one of the films that impacted me the most. I think it's a really well done film, and it's completely original in the message it's trying to convey. I was blown away, and I think you should definitely write this one down if you're into disturbing cinema. The Ordeal is what I would describe as the French Deliverance, but psychologically, it's so much worse. It says a lot about the sexualization of the male body. I found this both fascinating and disturbing, but there's not really any film that's covered this before in the same way. The film is about Mark, an attractive male performer whose car breaks down while he is traveling home for Christmas. Mark is lucky when he is taken in by the nearby villagers, but cracks soon show in what he assumed was small town hospitality. I have not been able to stop thinking about this film. The way they tell the story from the male perspective is very interesting. If you have not seen this film and you can handle extreme cinema, I mean, why else would you be here? If you can, please put this at the top of your list. There are a few common themes to be seen in French extremity films, and this one has two of the main aspects: scissors and Béatrice Dalle. She is everywhere. She is all over these disturbing films, and in this one, she plays a psychotic woman who breaks into a pregnant woman's house in hopes to steal her unborn baby. This is a home invasion unlike anything else, and it gets very bloody very quickly, taking body horror to a new level. If you're looking for something gory, here it is. One of the more well-known films for coining the term, High Tension is also known as Switchblade Romance and is a psychological nightmare. The film is about Marie and Alexia, who travel to Alexia's family who live on a secluded farm. But the trip doesn't go so smoothly when they're woken in the middle of the night by a psychotic killer. Because of the ending, the film received a mixed reaction, which I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about this, so please leave your opinions of this film in the comments down below. But one thing we have to all agree on is that this film is extremely gory, and even so much so that, fun fact, one of the cameras that they were filming with got so much fake blood inside of it that later, when it was working on a different film, it oozed blood. I wonder if it was a comedy or a romance. The next film is a film that a lot of people forget is French, and like a lot of other films on this list, it was shot in a different country, this time Morocco. But don't let that sway you, it has all the makings of French extremity. Revenge has graphic assault and pure bloody carnage. The film is about a woman who is taken away on a boy's getaway, but after being assaulted and left for dead, she seeks, well, you know what I'm gonna say. Revenge, obviously. Like many of the other films on this list, this one was a polarizing film, but I can confidently say that it's one of my, I hate saying favorite, but one of my favorite revenge films. Sorry, I had to censor that part for YouTube. I'm sure you can read between the lines. If you have been putting this film off, please just give it a chance. And also, you may want to suspend your belief just a little bit. This next film is very sick. This is truly a unique body horror made only for those with the strongest stomachs. In My Skin is about a woman who becomes obsessed with her body after an accident leaves her disfigured. With the tagline "Truth Cuts Deep," I'm sure you know what to expect. But if you're in the dark still, I'm gonna tell it to you straight. This is a spiraling journey of self-cannibalism, taking body horror to the next level. The thing about extreme cinema is by nature it's polarizing, and I understand this next film really upset some people, but for me, it was a trip. Pun intended. And just like that, Gaspar is back on this list with the 2008 film Climax that completely shook me. The film is about a group of French dancers that are rehearsing one night in a remote building. But when they decide to celebrate, their plans take a dangerous turn when someone spikes the sangria. Things stumble out of control, including the old classic director's camera work. But really, the thing that haunts me about this film is the fact that there was a child involved. I am kicking myself I didn't see this next film for so long and I kept putting it off. You guys, thank you so much for suggesting this film to me over and over, and I apologize for it taking me so long to see. Satan is a bizarre ride and really takes you to unexpected places. Starting off in a club, the film is about a group of young adults who follow a woman back to her secluded home, only to be confronted by a shepherd who has sinister plans. The film is meant to be kooky, strange, and funny, but the actions of the strangers in the house are so anxiety-inducing and bizarre. It's a really interesting film that puts you out of your comfort zone, and I do think it's a real gem. Body horror has always had a fascination with pregnancy, and Baby Blood is no exception. But what is an exception is the bizarre explanation to her fetus's actions. The film is about a woman who begins to hear the voice of her unborn baby, demanding blood. And naturally, a mother will do anything for her child. Usually, I wouldn't recommend a dubbed version of a film, but fun fact, the English dub version of this, the baby's voice is Gary Oldman. Many of these films have a home invasion element, but them is different because it's based on a true story, and knowing that when you watch it makes it so much more terrifying, especially when you read up on the story after the fact. Shot in 30 days, Them is about a couple who live in their isolated country home, but one night they're disturbed by noises, and a group of hooded strangers have surrounded their home. What do they want? There are some really interesting moments in this film with the dynamics of the villains and the couple. It's a film that asks you, what would you do? And thank the Dark Lord, we are the ones at home screaming at the TV because the idea of this being based on facts is traumatic. Here's one for people who aren't keen on subtitles. Hopefully this taste of French extremity will lure you in because you are missing out. The film has elements of Livid and of course Martyrs because it was another one that was written and directed by Pascal Laugier. But there are many twists. Incident in Ghostland, also known as Ghostland, is about a relationship between two sisters after an assault changes their life forever. This film does feed off shock value, but people swear by it. It also has strong themes of dolls and of course violence, juxtaposing the innocent and fragile with the darkest parts of humanity, as the poster shows. Claire Denis directed Trouble Every Day, which is an art house French body horror that is really hard to describe without giving too much away. The film is about an American couple that are honeymooning in Paris, but their relationship is complicated by the man's obsession with someone he used to know. The film is obscure and bloody, with themes of sexual violence as well as toxic relationships. There are some very confronting scenes that are disturbing because they are such a mystery. It's an interesting story, but it's told in a bizarre way. As I mentioned, it is very art house, but if that's your thing, definitely give it a spin. Remember in 2016 when we were all going to the cinema and there was this new brutal French horror movie that was really hyped up because there was a rumor that people kept seeing it and vomiting in the theater. Good times. Raw is a body horror about a woman studying to become a vet. Coincidentally, she is vegetarian, but the college's hazing ritual demands she swallows a raw rabbit kidney, and getting a taste for flesh changes her forever. I loved this film, even if the rumors were exaggerated. It said that in Sweden, during a session, 30 people left the cinema, 2 fainted, and others vomited. But the best part of Raw is it lines itself up to be a compelling story as well as gory. It doesn't just rely on meaningless shock. The next film, Hidden, is on this list because it is a stirring psychological thriller drama, and it reminded me a lot of The Gift, which I recommended to a lot of you and you loved it. It's a different story, but it has the same vibes. Hidden is about a family receiving anonymous videotapes on their doorstep. The tapes show surveillance of their home, and the police refuse to do anything to help. This leaves George to look within at who could be doing this to his family. The film is directed by Michael Haneke, who is known for Funny Games. But I should warn you, Hidden has an unusual ending that at first made me quite angry, but after reflection, I realized that was the true genius and purpose of the whole film. Here we are at the end of the list, and there's not much I can say about 7 Days, other than this film is utterly brutal, and I'm not sure anyone who watches it can ever really say they enjoyed it. In this one, a doctor seeks revenge on the man who sexually assaulted his daughter. He puts a plan in place to kidnap him and torture him for 7 days. The film is a bleak look at what justice really means. So bleak that there is no music, even when the credits roll. Good luck to anyone who can get through the whole film. I did it once, I'm not doing it again, and I did Irreversible twice. Irreversible is probably the most disturbing film on this list. I didn't label it. I was gonna rank this, but I can't rank from most disturbing to least disturbing because things that disturb you often have a lot to do with your own personal experiences in life. I hope you enjoyed this list. If you found it helpful at all, please give it a thumbs up. I hope I didn't creep you out too much. I hope you enjoyed this. This was a lot to get through. I'm gonna go get some bleach and pour it into my eyes. I hope you're having a great day. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I do 2 videos every single week. My 13 Days of Horror is coming up very soon and the list will be up shortly. I hope you're having a great day and I'll talk to you soon. Stay spooky. Bye.